Oh, Helen, thanks so much for your time. Just firstly, what did you do? You're going up. A lot of other magazines seem to be going down.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always a bit reluctant to crow because this is an incredibly difficult market at the moment, and as you've seen across the print spectrum, most outlets are experiencing falls. So having given you that caveat, we are getting really good readership figures, and we have had good readership figures mostly for the last 2 years. So it is incrementally going up. Even if it stays flat, we're happy. But to be honest, we were helped enormously by the royal wedding. That obviously gave us a massive boost in this particular audit period. So we were nearly 9% period on period and nearly 6% year on year. So over the whole year, we have done well. And I think even if you took the extraordinary results from the royal wedding out, we'd still be slightly up. So look, our research shows that what people are doing, they've stopped buying magazines as much as they did, probably not because they don't like the medium, not because magazines are dead, but because women have decided in the last 6 months to save money, and they're not spending on themselves. So $6.95, that's money they don't need to spend. But what they are doing is handing that magazine around to their neighbours and to their mum and to their sister and what have you. And in some research groups I did earlier in the year, women were describing, oh yeah, I buy the weekly, but it's a great read, it's really long, so when I've finished with it or I run out of time, I hand it over the back fence and give it to somebody else to read. And looking at these figures, that seems to be what they're doing.
The magazine's evolved quite a bit over the last probably decade. There's been some significant changes. What sort of things have you introduced or maybe stopped doing since you've sort of been there?
Oh, look, it has gone through a massive change, I think, in the last 2 years. The trick in publishing, though, is not to make those moves suddenly. It's always been the biggest selling magazine, and when I took over, it was still easily the biggest selling magazine, so it wasn't doing anything wrong. It's always been incredibly in touch with its readership. But, yeah, it was due a re-look at the content. And so my whole beef when I first started was to look at the stories and to bring my 20 years experience of newspapers and television reporting to the content up front. I'm completely convinced that the stories matter. Women are just screaming out for stories that are real life, that speak to them, that they're sick of the over-dependence on celebrity information. They want to know how successful women are juggling career and children, and so the journalism is probably the first thing. A whole new batch of writers. David Laser, who I think is probably the best profile writer in Australia, has come back. We brought Bryce Corbett in from Paris. I brought the Deputy Chief of Staff from the Sydney Morning Herald onto the news side of it. She runs and totally controls that news focus up front. We've overturned fashion. Fashion is no longer about tall, skinny, young women wearing expensive clothes. It's about you and me, not necessarily you, but we do have some men. You and me, what we can afford. We're normal sizes, we're older, we're younger, we're everybody. So fashion's been a big change because the readers were telling us they weren't happy at all with what we were doing in fashion. Food, I think, has always been our staple, and that didn't need messing with. But we've also introduced some finance because we know women are interested in how they're spending their money at the moment. They are worried about their superannuation, so we're trying to give quality advice on that. We introduced health pages, which hadn't really been done before. We've seen a boom in health magazines. Women are big buyers of some of the women's health titles. I was going to mention some competitors, but I should mention Good Health, the ACP magazine, and so we've introduced some quality health content. It's been look. The other thing I would say is the photographs. Photographs are really important, and expanded the sorts of people that have been taking photographs for the magazine and the styling of it, and still give it that rich, glossy feel, but not too elite.
I did want to ask you too, because obviously the Weekly has an iPad app.
Yes.
What do you think? I mean, will we see a quick transition perhaps from print to tablets, or is it going to be a lot slower?
I think knowing what I know now, I think it's going to be slower. You know, I think what we're going to do is you're going to be able to buy the magazine, you're going to be able to get it on your iPad, you're going to be able to get it on your mobile phone and have a website. They'll all be complementary. They'll be slightly different. The core will be there, the philosophy will be there if you like, the integrity. will be there, but they'll be slightly different. And I think, you know, when you've got 2.3 to 2.4 million women reading this magazine every month, that's not a magazine that's in trouble. And it's not a medium that's in trouble. It really isn't. I think magazines, certainly for women over 40, have got quite a bit left in them, and it's just about getting that, listening to your readership and getting that content right. That's not to say we're not going to experience falls in circulation. You know, I think we used to sell 1 million magazines, and that's just never going to happen again. But it's still, I think, having come from newspapers, I sense that magazines, particularly this one, have got quite a bit of life left in them.
Have you sort of had any gambles editorially that have sort of gone your way?
I've had huge
and
gambles.
Things like the company said, no, look, you can't do this and work for you. And then it sort of worked for you.
Lynette Phillips, when she hired me, and then she left the company earlier in the year, she said to me, "You're the bravest person I've ever known." I didn't think I was being that brave. Yeah, I have had some huge gambles. I put Barack Obama on the cover and Michelle, expecting that they were going to turn up, and they cancelled on me. And I just remember getting that call in the middle of the night going, and it's, you know, it's an 800,000 print run, like, terrible. The magazine sold fabulously. It was one of my best sellers for the year, so it did pay off. It did pay off, but that's not how we felt about it. And then, you know, I did the same thing again the next month. I did it with Susan Boyle. Thought she was coming out for the Logies. Went the gamble again. I remember Phil Scott, who I was talking to at that stage, he said, "You can't be that unlucky. It can't happen to you twice." Guess what? It did. So I did that. You know, there was a lot of discussion about putting Maggie Beer and Ita Buttrose on the cover. Maggie, I'm going to get this wrong, and it's a really dumb thing to do, but Ita is 69, turning 70, and Maggie's younger, and a lot of debate about whether you can put women over 60 on the cover of a mass market magazine. Guess what? You can. And I do think women over 50 and 60 get ignored by the media, and there's a lot of them, and they are opinionated, and they're not old, let me tell you. So some of those things have been big gambles. Equally, I've gone younger too. I've done some younger women, and lots of commentary. Am I taking the magazine younger? Well, no. I'm trying to represent all women wherever they are, and I'm just interested in doing the people that are most interesting for the cover at that time.
James, I just wonder if I could bring you in on this as well. Obviously, with the figures that we get at the moment, they're for all the print editions when we're looking at newspapers and magazines. I mean, is there a time when we really need to be moving towards combining the online and the print sales?
I think we'll get that. I mean, it's still early days for magazines online, I think, to go down that track. But certainly in newspapers, where they've, you know, I think publishers realise, look, we probably made a mistake a decade or more ago when we started giving away all this stuff free. But they've built up massive audiences online, and I think it will happen. But I'm just surprised they sort of maybe haven't moved a little bit quicker when they come out and say, look, we've got this many people hard copy, this is our total audience. I think it's something to do with maybe the advertising. It's hard
and how to quantify it. I think that's right. I certainly, when I was at News Limited, which was only a couple of years ago, working on the biggest selling newspaper in the country, and, you know, watching those figures go down every quarter, going, well, this is really not fair, because we're getting extraordinary figures online. I think the newspapers are moving much faster towards doing that, because it just goes to show that the content is still critically important. People will find it, and therefore you should be able to quantify it. The same for us, equally. It's the weekly website is the biggest magazine website in the country as well, and I'm not going to get the figures right, because I always stuff this up. But Women's Day equally has a massive website. In fact, we share the #1 title from time to time. But they're huge figures, and we don't actually put much into them. The resourcing's not huge at the moment, so we are going to have to work out ways of doing that. And then when you add the number of people that are buying the magazine on their iPad as well, then, you know, as I say, 2.3 million reading it, and if you say 500,000 buying it, they're big figures. And the challenge, I think, actually, it's a really exciting time. When I took the job, it was a magazine that had a little bit of an interest in the digital media. Now it is an iPad app. It is online. We've got 2 one-hour television shows which we're doing at the moment for Christmas. So it's everywhere.
Yeah. Huge changes. Helen, great to talk to you as always. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Do stay with us. Coming up on Media Week, the media frenzy surrounding the presidential visit.